I've dealt with some extremely debilitating health anxiety for around 5 years of my life. And for the longest part of that time, my condition seemed to be deteriorating by the day instead of getting better. This right here is me at the emergency department, after I had to call the ambulance because I thought I was having a heart attack. I might look okay here, but on the inside I can tell you I was properly freaking out. I find it kind of crazy to think about how strong our mind can be when in an open or social setting. Because in that moment, all I wanted to do was scream and beg for my mom to come and be by my side. I genuinely thought I was going to die that day. But as the guy taking the picture was my friend, I kind of had to play it cool and did my best to joke off the entire situation. I'm not sure if that made it better or worse, but it is a good introduction to today's topic. When it comes to anxiety recovery, I often have the feeling that a lot of people teaching about recovery tend to overcomplicate or overthink the entire process. Without wanting to step on anyone's feet here, but at least for me, I have the feeling that there probably is too much emphasis on digging out root causes for past traumatic events. You know, like reflecting back onto our childhood and trying to uncover some key moments that might have defined the past to where we are now. You kind of get the feeling that recovery is somehow going to be the result of identifying your root causes and then processing them in a healthy way. While I'm not going to deny that root causes are a real thing, I do however think that we often have a faulty perception of what a root cause can be and what impact they have on your recovery journey. When we hear the term root cause, we often associate it with real-life traumatic events that have somehow left a scar on you in one way or another. However, I feel that root causes are often a lot less dramatic and in your face than we think. Plus, probably even more important is that while they can be the foundation, the base layer of how you got into this anxious state, once you have then reached that overwhelm point, well then the root cause often completely detaches from your anxiety and has close to nothing to do with it anymore. Because now it is the fear, or the fear of the symptom and the fatigue that is actually continuously fueling you with stress, and so is keeping you in that overwhelmed state. So you see, after doing this YouTube thing for quite some time now, and talking to many of you, I get the feeling that there are a lot of common traits that many of us share and are pretty much what I would define as a root cause. I will use myself as an example here to paint the picture. I was always a very quiet, timid and shy person since I was a small kid. I was the kid who usually just watched others play and have fun and would only join if someone came up to me and asked me directly if I wanted to play. That's partly because I liked being for myself, but also because I never wanted to expose myself to the possible rejection, possible embarrassment or plain failure. I was always thinking 10 steps ahead, but not from my perspective, but from the perspective of other people around me. Just constantly thinking of what they will think of me, what they will do if this or that happened, and so on. And this thinking I took with me all the way to my adult life. And I always had this very passive, very secure kind of approach to everything. And now looking back, I even realized that the things I did, the things I talk about and spent my time with were often not really what I was genuinely interested in or wanted to do, but mostly there to kind of impress others or to increase the likelihood for them liking me, so that in future they would come up to me again and ask me if I would like to play. In a sense, I subconsciously kind of lost myself and gave up living the life I wanted to live for the sake of others liking me. It even got so far that I started drinking a lot because drunk Tristan seemed to be the fun and interesting person I always thought I wanted to be. So whenever I went out to meet friends, I only could do so when drinks were involved, or else I would just feel awkward and wouldn't know what to talk about. On the inside, I always thought of myself as uninteresting. In my mind, I've made drunk Tristan the real version of myself, because apparently that's the version everyone likes. I worked at a job that I hated because I wanted to make my parents proud. And altogether, I have the feeling that so many actions I took, like going out, trying to make as much money as possible, and even taking drugs, were mostly all there, not because I enjoyed them, but mostly for having some cool stories to tell, in the hopes for maybe seeming more interesting, and to have some common ground to talk about with people I thought I looked up to. Well, to cut it short, I believe that the vast majority of people develop anxiety issues in their teens and early adult life because they are in that part of life where they need to start to grow up, take responsibilities, be self-dependent, and also start wanting to express their true selves and values. That's a lot of change and stress that is accumulated. Add on that the friction of constantly being self-aware of your actions because all you want to do is be liked by others and present yourself in a way that maybe isn't true to yourself. Well, that can easily escalate into that first panic attack when combined with day-to-day stressors. So if you can kind of relate to my story and how I approached life before, I really wanted to make something very clear for you when it comes to anxiety recovery. When you are in this anxious state, all you need to do is look at anxiety from a stress level perspective. The stress levels you're dealing with are extremely high because if you are here watching this video, you're worried that the symptoms might be a sign of something serious, or you might be extremely terrified of the next panic attack. They feel terrible, no doubt. But whatever it is, it keeps feeding into your stress levels, and you probably don't have an outlet for all of that built up in your tension. Because anxiety can feel so crushing, can take away all the motivation and leave you drained. So this is the important part. We often think that action follows motivation, but in reality it is the other way around. I asked you to take that very first step and start working on lowering stress, and the motivation will follow. Every day, take that necessary first step and get that stress lowered. Combine your actions with building up your own confidence and your perception of how you see yourself. Start forming your life the way you see fit and get rid of toxic people in your surroundings. Be true to yourself. If you're the weird, more quiet person who likes to go on walks and stay home like me, but start to be comfortable with that. If you are financially dependent on your parents, for example, and feel like you owe them something, or owe them to listen to their advice, well, then I would suggest cutting that financial aid as soon as possible and work harder on gaining that independence. If you wanted to work on your business, well, then start learning the necessary skills. All these kind of small things will have a gigantic impact on your self-confidence and self-worth, which will then eventually, combined with stress coping mechanisms, make it a lot less likely that you ever end up in this overwhelmed state again. I think that for many, this whole anxiety journey is a lot about finding peace and confidence for who we are and what we want to do, plus living healthier and more balanced in the face of stress. You will notice that once you don't have to hide yourself behind that fake persona you have created or that immense urge to be someone else, that life gets so much easier, and at the end, people will start loving you even more. Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you're new here and want to see more anxiety-related content just like this one, consider subscribing.